So what we're talking about is we're talking about how to revise our literary analysis that we've now turned in, and we've turned it in for review. And what you're going to find is when you get your writing conference, when you listen to it, you're going to find that I did not read the entire essay and tell you what to correct. That is not my job. My job is to give you suggestions and feedback on how you are doing the writing to get you to think, what do I need to do to make this piece better? So what I did with most of you is I read your introduction, we talked about your thesis statement, and then I started reading your first paragraph, okay? And then I read into that a little bit, made some comments, then I would scroll down in your essay and read a little bit into your second paragraph, scroll down and read your conclusion. So I did not start at the beginning, read the entire essay, and tell you how to fix everything. I offered suggestions and help. You need to understand that a well-crafted composition will make the reader understand clearly the relationships between the ideas. That means it gives the reader food for thought without making the task of understanding your ideas difficult. Here's what's going on in your papers. The first thing that I saw was this. Number one, when you wrote your paragraph on setting, the majority of students simply retold the story or gave a book report. In other words, your paragraphs read like this. The story took place in 1942 at Devon Boarding School. And for some reason, you guys seem to think that Devon Boarding School, the term boarding school, does not need capital letters. I understand that. Okay, the second thing that you need to know is that you also continued writing in your setting. You just told the story. And a lot of you brought in character elements into your setting, so you need to be looking for that. What you have to do with the setting is you have to think about, how does this setting, how does 1942 boarding school, all boys, a threat of war, being drafted into the war, how does that play into the story? That's the analysis, not retelling me the story or retelling the reader the story. We know the story. You don't have to tell it to us. The second thing that you need to remember is that for every quote that you have, there should be 2 to 3 sentences prior to the quote of your analysis. A lot of you got in the habit of this. I wrote a sentence, I wrote a quote. I wrote a sentence, I wrote a quote. And if you're going to put in a quote, make sure that the quote that you put in is relevant to the point you are trying to make, supports the point you are trying to make, and number 3, you choose the part of the quote that is the most significant. If you're writing long quotes to pad the paper, to make it longer, it's not going to help your grade at all. Because you see, length is not a factor in this assignment. Some essays will get A's that will be much shorter than essays that get D's because they're really long. So do not think by writing lines and lines and lines of quote out of the book, it will improve your grade. It will not. If you're having trouble understanding which part of the quote you need to take, no problem. That's what your teachers are here to help you for. Okay? Are there any questions? All right, so what's the next step in revision? First, you get your rough draft returned and you listen to your writing conference. That's what we're going to do first. Then you listen to it a second time. Why would I listen to it more than once? Marla, nice and loud.
To get what you like to understand what you missed the first time.
Right, because you've got to hear things more than once, right? So you might want to listen to the writing conference all the way through. Then you might want to listen to what I say about the introduction and stop it, and then work on your introduction. And then go back and listen some more about the body of the paper, and then stop it and go back and work on that, okay? Carefully go over highlighted areas for mechanical errors that need to be fixed. I did not highlight mechanical errors in your paper. I did point some things out to you. Another common problem that we had with revision was people are talking in their paper. And you'll hear me say this over and over and over again in your writing conferences. I point out lots of sentences that are talking. You see, we're not having a conversation. You and I are not discussing the book. So we don't want to talk in our paper. You're the expert. You're doing the analysis. Make your statement and stick to it. So avoid statements like, in this book, I will tell you. In the story, it was seen or observed that this. Don't have those kind of sentences in there. Just make the statement. And 9 times out of 10, you can take that introductory phrase off and you've got your statement. You guys write that stuff for 2 reasons. 1, you're still writing like you talk, which we should be moving beyond that at this point. And 2, you're padding the paper. You're using it to lengthen your paper. So why do we revise? It gives us the opportunity to write with our heads. We've got all the words out on paper now. We've written down all of our thoughts and ideas. Now it's time to use all of our skills and our knowledge to make it the best paper we can. And we look at the power of our words. Sometimes what you need to do is you need to look carefully at the words you have chosen and look for the best possible words that you can to explain what you are trying to say. But one word of caution. I have students using the thesaurus, yay! But they're putting in words they don't have a clue what they mean. So when I read the word, my first thought is, I don't think they know what that word means because you've used it incorrectly. Just because a thesaurus says it is a synonym does not mean it fits into your sentence. So be very, very careful. Writing is thinking. Oftentimes we don't know what we think until we read what we write. It's a really good motto to live by. It's one of the ways in which we think through or hash through our ideas, and that's the reason why rough drafts are so important. It allows us to work through our thinking and hash through our ideas. However, revision is really important because I want to see your final outcome, not your thinking process. I want to see what you've come up with after you've thought through all of your ideas. Okay? So you're going to ask yourself these questions. Does the introduction avoid openings such as in this story? We don't want to see that anywhere in your paper. Is it effective? Is the organization effective? Does it not dwindle? It should build up towards the end. Do quotations provide evidence that proves your opinions or supports your ideas? Is the essay devoted to analysis, not summary? Do not summarize the plot. This is a big piece. I see this a lot. Retelling, book report type things. So you want to avoid this. Sometimes to get your analysis through, you need a brief statement that explains where you're going. So you might say, Jean jounced the limb which caused Finney to fall. That's a summary statement. However, the next sentence then might explain the analysis of that event. Which brings me to another issue that I've seen in your papers. A lot of you did not write your 3rd paragraph about the issues. You wrote it about the themes. You went on to explain how jealousy, denial, or irresponsibility was found or discovered in the story. That is not what the 3rd paragraph is about. If you go back and revisit your reading guides, your pre-writing, you will see that you were told that the themes should be brought about in all of your analysis work. It is not a separate paragraph. In your separate paragraph, you were supposed to identify 3 major issues in the story. Most students are identifying the incident at the tree, the trial that Brinker held, and then there is a lot of kids that have kind of jumped back and forth between the relationship between Jean and Finney, which can be covered in the characters paragraph, and how Jean is very jealous of Finney, or lepers when he joins the army and then deserts the army. It doesn't matter what your issues are. It's your choice. You are the author, but it needs to be about the issues. So, if all you have done in your revision process is add a sentence or 2, corrected a few spelling mistakes, or simply resubmitted your rough draft for grading, don't expect any positive results. Your paper will be graded as a final copy and will reflect the effort you have put into your work. Remember, I've seen all your rough drafts. Even if you are an exceptional writer to begin with, there is always room to improve your work. Are there any questions about what I just went over? Any questions at all? None. Everybody's positive. They know exactly what to do. We don't need to worry about anything. So I'm going to see incredibly exceptional literary analysis papers. Okay. I've got one more thing to say, but I want to stop the video.